It all began on a Sunday morning, much like any other. I was sitting in our usual pew, listening to the familiar hum of the congregation, when I noticed something that struck me as odd. My wife, Anna, had lingered by the church exit, engaged in an animated conversation with a man I didn't recognize. His name, I would later learn, was Jack, a new parishioner. Their interaction seemed too friendly, too intimate, for a first-time meeting. That evening, as we settled into our routine at home, I couldn't shake the image of their interaction from my mind. "Who was that guy you were talking to after service?" I asked casually, trying not to sound accusatory. Anna glanced up from her phone, a fleeting look of surprise crossing her face. "Oh, that's Jack. He's new to the parish and needed some help getting acquainted," she replied, her tone light, but her eyes betraying a hint of discomfort as they shifted away. Over the next few weeks, I began to notice subtle changes in Anna's behavior. She spent more time in front of the mirror, carefully selecting her outfits and applying makeup with a precision I hadn't seen in years. She was also increasingly preoccupied with her phone, smiling at messages she received, and often staying back at the church long after services had ended. One evening, as we were preparing for bed, I saw a text notification light up her phone screen. It was from Jack. Anna quickly dismissed it, but not before I caught a glimpse of his name. My heart sank. The pieces were falling into place, and I didn't like the picture they were forming. Determined to uncover the truth, I began discreetly attending church at different times, observing from the shadows. It didn't take long for my suspicions to be confirmed. I saw them together, their interactions more intimate than ever. They laughed and whispered, their connection undeniable. My worst fears were realized one quiet afternoon when I overheard their conversation behind the church. Jack was speaking softly, his voice tinged with emotion. "I can't stand being apart from you, Anna. I want to be with you always." Anna's reply was like a dagger to my heart. "I feel the same, Jack. Being with you makes me so happy." That night I confronted Anna. I could no longer keep my suspicions to myself. "Anna, are you having an affair with Jack?" I asked directly, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. She froze, her face draining of color. For a moment she tried to deny it, but then, seeing the pain in my eyes, she broke down. "Yes, I am," she confessed, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean for it to happen, but I felt so alone, so disconnected from you. Jack made me feel alive again." The room spun around me as I processed her words. 10 years of marriage, a decade of shared memories and dreams, now lay shattered at my feet. I was overwhelmed with despair, questioning everything I had ever known about our relationship. In the following days, I grappled with the enormity of the situation. I confided in friends and family, seeking solace and understanding. They reassured me that I was not to blame, that sometimes, despite our best efforts, things fall apart. Eventually, I realized that the only way forward was to confront Jack. I needed to hear from him, to understand his side of the story. We met at a small cafe near the church. He admitted his feelings for Anna, apologizing for the pain he had caused, but insisting that his love for her was genuine. I was faced with an agonizing choice: fight to save my marriage or let Anna go. After many sleepless nights and heart-wrenching conversations, we decided to part ways. The love we once shared had been irrevocably damaged, and neither of us could continue living under the shadow of betrayal. Our divorce was painful but ultimately necessary. It allowed me to begin rebuilding my life, finding new passions and connections. As for Anna and Jack, they stayed together, and I could only hope they found the happiness they sought. In the days following Anna's confession, my life seemed to descend into chaos. I couldn't concentrate at work, and my mind kept replaying our conversations, searching for signs I might have missed. The once comforting routine of our home now felt stifling, filled with memories that had become painful reminders of her betrayal. Anna and I tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy for our friends and family, but the tension between us was palpable. She moved to the guest room, and our interactions became strained and awkward. I couldn't help but notice the lingering sadness in her eyes, but it only fueled my anger and confusion. How could she do this to us? One evening, after another silent dinner, I retreated to our bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the framed photographs lining the walls. Pictures of our wedding day, vacations, and simple, happy moments. They all seemed like relics of a past life, one that had slipped through my fingers without me even realizing it. I decided to take a walk to clear my head. As I strolled through the quiet, tree-lined streets of our neighborhood, I reflected on the past decade. Anna and I had met in college, our love blossoming quickly and intensely. We shared dreams and plans for the future, believing we could conquer anything together. But somewhere along the way, we had drifted apart. The next day, I reached out to a few close friends and confided in them about what had happened. Their support was unwavering, and their perspectives helped me see the situation from different angles. Some urged me to fight for our marriage, to seek counseling, and try to rebuild what we had lost. Others suggested that sometimes it's better to let go and move on. I also sought guidance from our pastor, hoping for some clarity. He listened patiently, offering wisdom and empathy. "Marriage is a journey with many challenges," he said. "Forgiveness and reconciliation are possible, but they require both partners to be fully committed to the process." Despite the well-meaning advice, I still felt lost. I needed to understand why Anna had turned to Jack. Was it something I had done, or perhaps something I hadn't done? I knew I needed to speak with her honestly, to delve into the root of our problems. One evening, as we sat in the living room, I broached the subject. "Anna, we need to talk about us, about what went wrong," I began, my voice trembling slightly. She looked up from her book, her expression weary but resigned. "I agree, we do." We talked late into the night, unraveling the threads of our marriage. Anna admitted that she had felt neglected and lonely for a long time. My long hours at work and my growing disinterest in our relationship had driven her to seek solace elsewhere. Jack had simply been there at the right time, offering her the attention and affection she craved. Her words cut deep, but they also brought a sense of clarity. I realized that I had taken her for granted, assuming our love was unbreakable without putting in the necessary effort to nurture it. In the days that followed, we continued our conversations, trying to navigate the complex emotions and decisions that lay ahead. It became clear that despite our best intentions, the damage to our relationship might be beyond repair. Anna expressed a desire to be with Jack, and though it pained me deeply, I knew I couldn't force her to stay. As the weeks turned into months, we began the process of separating our lives. We sold the house that had once been our sanctuary and divided our belongings. Each step felt like tearing off a piece of my soul, but it was also a path toward healing. One evening, shortly before our divorce was finalized, Anna and I shared a quiet dinner. It was bittersweet, filled with memories of happier times and the recognition of what we had lost. We spoke candidly about our hopes for the future, wishing each other well despite the pain that lingered between us. Our parting was amicable, but heart-wrenching. As I watched her walk away for the last time, I felt a profound sense of loss, but also a glimmer of hope. This was the end of one chapter, but perhaps the beginning of something new. The day after our final dinner, I knew what I had to do. I needed to confront Jack face to face. I needed to hear his side of the story, to understand what had transpired between him and Anna. It was a step toward closure, a way to reclaim some sense of control over the chaos that had enveloped my life. I arranged to meet Jack at a small cafe near the church, a neutral ground where we could talk openly. As I walked into the cafe, my heart pounded in my chest. There he was, sitting at a corner table, looking just as uneasy as I felt. He stood up as I approached, extending a hand that I reluctantly shook. "Thank you for meeting with me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Of course," Jack replied, his tone earnest. "I understand why you wanted to talk." We sat down, and for a moment there was an awkward silence. I took a deep breath and decided to dive right in. "I need to know how this happened. How did you and Anna... How did it start?" Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It wasn't planned, believe me. When I first met Anna, I had no intention of getting involved with her. We just started talking after church one day, and it felt natural. We connected on a lot of things, and over time, those conversations became more personal. I listened, trying to keep my emotions in check. But why? Why did you let it go further? Didn't you think about the consequences?" "Of course I did," he said, his voice filled with regret. "I knew it was wrong, and I tried to resist. But the more we talked, the more I realized how lonely she was, how much she needed someone to be there for her. And I felt the same way. We were both lonely, both looking for something more." His words stung, but they also resonated with the conversations Anna and I had had. I knew she had felt neglected, and hearing Jack's perspective only reinforced that realization. "So what now?" I asked, leaning back in my chair. "What's your plan?" Jack looked me in the eye, his expression sincere. "I love her, and I want to be with her. I know this is incredibly painful for you, and I'm sorry for the hurt I've caused, but I believe Anna and I can build a future together." I studied his face, searching for any signs of deceit. All I saw was a man who was genuinely in love with my wife. The irony wasn't lost on me. Our marriage had ended not because of some fleeting infatuation, but because of a deep connection that I had failed to maintain. "Do you think she feels the same way?" I asked, needing to hear it from him. He nodded. "She does. We've talked about it extensively. She's willing to move forward with me, but we both understand that it's going to be difficult. There's a lot of healing that needs to happen." I took a long sip of my coffee, absorbing everything he had said. This wasn't the outcome I had hoped for, but it was the reality I had to accept. "I appreciate your honesty, Jack," I said finally. "I needed to hear this from you. I needed to understand." "I'm glad we could talk," he replied. "And for what it's worth, I hope you can find happiness again. I truly do." With that, we stood up and shook hands once more. As I walked out of the cafe, I felt a strange sense of relief. The confrontation hadn't been easy, but it was a necessary step in my healing process. I had faced the man who had inadvertently torn my life apart, and in doing so, I had begun to reclaim my own sense of self. In the days that followed, I focused on moving forward. I threw myself into my work, reconnected with friends, and started exploring new hobbies. There were still difficult moments, but they were interspersed with glimpses of hope and renewal. One sunny afternoon, as I was walking through the park, I realized that life would go on. I had the power to shape my future, to find new paths and new joys. And as I stood there, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face, I knew that I was on the right track. As the weeks passed, I found myself slowly adjusting to my new reality. The initial shock and pain of Anna's betrayal had dulled to a persistent but manageable ache. Life continued, and I was determined to move forward. One evening, I decided to attend a social event organized by my company. It was a charity gala, something I had previously avoided in the wake of my personal turmoil. But I knew I needed to re-engage with the world, to step out of the shadow of my failed marriage. Dressed in a suit that hadn't seen the light of day in months, I arrived at the venue, a beautifully decorated ballroom in a downtown hotel. The atmosphere was lively, filled with the buzz of conversation and laughter. As I navigated the crowd, I felt a mixture of apprehension and excitement. It was my first real attempt at reclaiming a semblance of normalcy. I soon found myself in a conversation with a colleague, Mark, who had always been a good friend. He knew about my situation and had been a steady source of support. "It's good to see you here, David," Mark said, handing me a drink. "How have you been holding up?" I shrugged, offering a faint smile. "Better. It's been tough, but I'm trying to move on." "That's the spirit," he replied, clinking his glass against mine. "You deserve some happiness, my friend." As the night progressed, I mingled with various guests, slowly finding my social footing again. It was liberating to talk about work, hobbies, and mundane topics, leaving the weight of my personal struggles behind, if only for a few hours. At one point, I stepped outside for some fresh air, finding a quiet spot on the terrace. The city lights twinkled below, and I felt a sense of peace wash over me. It was in this serene moment that I met Rachel. She was standing alone, gazing out at the cityscape, her auburn hair catching the light of the nearby lanterns. There was something calming about her presence, a quiet strength that drew me in. "Beautiful night, isn't it?" I said, approaching her. She turned to me with a warm smile. "It really is. Sometimes it's nice to escape the noise and just take it all in." We introduced ourselves and quickly fell into easy conversation. Rachel worked in marketing for a non-profit and had a genuine passion for her work. There was an openness about her, a sincerity that was both refreshing and comforting. As we talked, I found myself sharing more about my life than I had with anyone else since the separation. Rachel listened without judgment, her empathy evident in her eyes. "I'm sorry to hear about what you've been through," she said softly. "It sounds incredibly painful." "It was," I admitted. "But meeting new people, trying new things, it helps." Tonight has been a good step forward. I'm glad to hear that, she said. If you ever need someone to talk to or just want to grab a coffee, I'd be happy to. We exchanged contact information, and as the evening drew to a close, I felt a sense of hope that had been absent for so long. Meeting Rachel had been an unexpected but welcome turn in my journey. Over the next few weeks, Rachel and I began to spend more time together. We went for coffee, explored the city, and shared stories about our lives. She became a bright spot in my day, a reminder that life could be joyful again. One afternoon, we visited an art gallery downtown. As we wandered through the exhibits, I felt a sense of connection and excitement that I hadn't felt in years. Rachel's presence was invigorating, and her laughter was contagious. You have a great sense of humor, she said, smiling at one of my jokes. I can't remember the last time I laughed this much. Thanks, I replied, feeling a warmth spread through me. It's been a long time since I've felt this happy. As we stood in front of a particularly striking painting, Rachel turned to me, her eyes filled with curiosity. Do you think you're ready to move on, to open your heart again? The question caught me off guard, but I knew the answer almost immediately. I think I am, I said, taking her hand. Meeting you has shown me that there's still so much to look forward to, so much to experience. Rachel smiled, squeezing my hand gently. I'm glad to hear that. Let's see where this journey takes us. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life had taken unexpected turns, but it had also brought new opportunities and connections. As Rachel and I left the gallery, I felt a renewed sense of hope and anticipation for the future. As my relationship with Rachel deepened, the sense of hope and renewal in my life continued to grow. However, the specter of my past with Anna still loomed large. I knew that in order to fully embrace my new beginning, I needed to find closure with Anna. There were unresolved emotions and lingering questions that needed addressing, not just for my sake, but for hers as well. One Saturday morning, I decided to call Anna. It had been months since we last spoke, and I wasn't sure how she would react. I needed to express my feelings and hear hers too. To my surprise, she agreed to meet. We decided on a quiet cafe where we used to go together, a place filled with bittersweet memories. As I walked in, I saw her sitting at a corner table, looking out the window. She looked different, more serene, but there was also a trace of sadness in her eyes. When she saw me, she smiled, and for a moment it felt like the old days. Hi, Anna, I said, sitting down across from her. Hi, David, she replied softly. It's good to see you. We ordered our drinks and engaged in small talk for a few minutes, catching up on the superficial aspects of our lives, but I knew we needed to delve deeper, to confront the past head-on. Anna, I've been doing a lot of thinking, I began, my voice steady but earnest. I needed to see you to talk about everything that happened, to find some closure. She nodded, her expression somber. I've been thinking a lot too. There are things I need to say as well. I took a deep breath. I want you to know that I've forgiven you. It took time, but I've realized that holding on to anger and resentment wasn't helping anyone. We both made mistakes, and I'm sorry for my part in what happened. Tears welled up in her eyes and she reached for my hand. Thank you, David. I'm so sorry for the pain I caused you. I never meant for things to turn out this way. I felt so lost and alone and I made terrible choices. We both did, I said, squeezing her hand gently. I neglected our relationship. I took you for granted and I see that now. I hope you and Jack find happiness together. She smiled through her tears. We're doing well, but it's been a journey. We've both had to work through a lot of guilt and pain. I want you to know that I'm truly sorry for everything. I know you are, I replied, and I want you to know that I'm moving on. I've met someone, Rachel. She's helped me see that there's still so much to look forward to in life. I'm glad to hear that, Anna said sincerely. You deserve happiness, David. You always have. We sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of our words settle. It was a cathartic release, a necessary step toward healing for both of us. As we finished our drinks and prepared to leave, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for so long. We stood outside the cafe, the morning sun casting a warm glow around us. Take care, Anna, I said, giving her a final hug. You too, David, she replied, her voice filled with genuine warmth. I wish you all the best. As we parted ways, I felt a lightness in my heart. The past, with all its pain and regret, no longer held the same power over me. I was ready to fully embrace my future with Rachel, free from the shadows of what had been. In the following weeks, I threw myself into my new life with renewed vigor. Rachel and I grew closer, sharing dreams and making plans. We traveled together, explored new hobbies, and found joy in the simple moments of everyday life. One evening, as we sat on the balcony of my apartment watching the sunset, Rachel turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You seem different lately, more at peace." "I am," I said, smiling at her. "Meeting with Anna gave me the closure I needed. I feel like I can finally move forward without looking back." "I'm glad to hear that," she said, resting her head on my shoulder. "You deserve to be happy." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life had taken me through unexpected and often painful twists, but it had also brought me to this moment of contentment and hope. I knew there would still be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them, hand in hand with Rachel. Together, we would create new memories, build a future filled with love and laughter, and embrace the journey that lay ahead. As summer turned into fall, the crisp air and changing leaves symbolized the transformation in my own life. With each passing day, the memories of my past marriage faded, replaced by the vibrant present I was building with Rachel. One sunny afternoon, Rachel and I decided to take a weekend trip to a small town in the countryside. It was a place neither of us had visited before, known for its charming bed and breakfasts, scenic hiking trails, and quaint local shops. We packed our bags and set off, eager for a little adventure. The drive was filled with laughter and music, the kind of lighthearted joy I hadn't felt in a long time. As we approached our destination, the rolling hills and golden fields took my breath away. It was the perfect setting for a fresh start, away from the reminders of the past. Our bed and breakfast was a cozy, historic inn with a wraparound porch and a view of the nearby mountains. The owner, a friendly elderly woman named Margaret, greeted us warmly and showed us to our room. It was charming, with a rustic feel and a large window overlooking the countryside. After unpacking, we decided to explore the town. Hand in hand, we wandered through the narrow streets, browsing the local shops and sampling delicious homemade treats from the bakery. Everything about the town seemed to encourage relaxation and connection, and I found myself fully immersed in the moment. That evening, we had dinner at a small candle-lit restaurant. The atmosphere was intimate, and as we talked over wine and delicious food, I felt a deep sense of contentment. Rachel's laughter and the sparkle in her eyes filled me with warmth. As we walked back to the inn under a sky full of stars, Rachel suddenly stopped and turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "David, this weekend has been amazing. I love being here with you." "I love being here with you too," I replied, feeling a surge of affection for her. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you," she said, taking a deep breath. "How do you see our future? Where do you see us going?" Her question took me by surprise, but it was something I had been thinking about as well. "Rachel, I see us building a life together," I said honestly. "You've brought so much joy and stability into my life. I want to keep moving forward with you to see where this journey takes us." She smiled, a look of relief and happiness spreading across her face. "I feel the same way. I want to share my life with you, David. I believe we have something really special." We stood there for a moment, wrapped in each other's arms, the cool night air swirling around us. It was a turning point, a mutual acknowledgement of our shared future. The next day, we set out on a hike through the nearby trails. The path wound through dense forests and along the edges of clear, sparkling streams. As we climbed higher, the views became even more breathtaking. We stopped at a lookout point. The entire valley spread out below us, bathed in the golden light of the afternoon sun. Sitting on a rock, we talked about our dreams and aspirations, the places we wanted to visit, and the life we envisioned together. It felt like the world was full of possibilities, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly hopeful about the future. As we descended the trail, I knew that this trip had solidified something important between us. It wasn't just a getaway. It was the beginning of a new chapter. We were no longer defined by our pasts, but by the future we were building together. Back at the inn, we spent our last evening watching the sunset from the porch, wrapped in a blanket, in each other's arms. The sky painted in hues of pink and orange, reflected the sense of peace and optimism I felt. As we headed back home the next day, I realized how much my life had changed. I had gone from a place of despair and uncertainty to one of hope and love. Rachel had become an integral part of my journey, and together, we were ready to face whatever the future held. In the weeks that followed, we continued to grow closer, our bond strengthening with each shared experience. We talked about moving in together, blending our lives more fully. It was a big step, but one we were both excited to take. Looking back, I could see how every moment, every challenge, and every heartache had led me to this point. Life had a way of surprising you, of bringing new beginnings when you least expected them. And as I stood at the threshold of this new chapter, I felt ready to embrace it with open arms, knowing that the best was yet to come. As Rachel and I prepared to move in together, we faced the typical challenges of merging two lives into one. Packing up our respective apartments, deciding which furniture to keep, and navigating the logistics of shared space were all part of the process. Despite the occasional stress, we were both excited about this new chapter. One weekend, as we were organizing Rachel's belongings, I came across an old photo album tucked away in a box labeled Memories. Curious, I sat down on the floor and began flipping through the pages. The album was filled with pictures from her childhood, college days, and various vacations. It was a beautiful glimpse into her life before we met. As I turned the pages, I came across a section dedicated to a man I didn't recognize. There were numerous photos of Rachel with him, smiling at the beach, hiking in the mountains, and celebrating holidays. It was clear from the pictures that they had shared many happy moments together. Rachel walked into the room just as I reached the end of the album. Seeing the look on my face, she sat down next to me and took the album from my hands. "That's Mark," she said softly. "He was a big part of my life for a long time." I could hear the emotion in her voice and sensed that this was an important conversation. "Do you want to tell me about him?" I asked gently. She nodded, taking a deep breath. "Mark and I were together for almost 6 years. We met in college and fell in love quickly. He was my best friend, my confidant, and the person I thought I would spend the rest of my life with." Her eyes grew distant as she continued. "But about 2 years ago, things started to change. He became distant, and I could tell something was wrong. I tried to talk to him about it, but he always brushed it off, saying he was just stressed from work." She paused, her voice trembling slightly. "One day, I came home early from a business trip to surprise him. That's when I found out the truth. He was having an affair with a coworker. It shattered me. I felt like my entire world had crumbled." I reached out and took her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. "I'm so sorry, Rachel. That must have been incredibly painful." "It was," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "I confronted him, and he admitted everything. He said he didn't know why he did it, that he still loved me, but I couldn't stay. I packed my things and left that night. It took me a long time to heal, to trust again." Rachel wiped away a tear and looked at me with a sad smile. "Then I met you. You brought light back into my life, David. I never thought I could feel this way again, but you've shown me that it's possible." Her vulnerability touched me deeply, and I pulled her into a comforting embrace. "Thank you for sharing that with me," I whispered. "I know how hard it is to open up about the past." Rachel hugged me tightly. "I wanted you to know because I don't want any secrets between us. You're the most important person in my life now, and I want us to build something real and lasting." As we sat there holding each other, I realized how much Rachel's past mirrored my own. We had both experienced betrayal and heartbreak, but we had also found a way to move forward. Our shared pain had forged a deeper connection between us. In the days that followed, Rachel and I continued to talk openly about our pasts, our fears, and our hopes for the future. These conversations brought us even closer, reinforcing our commitment to each other. One evening, as we sat on the couch, Rachel looked at me with a determined expression. "David, there's something else I've been thinking about. I want us to go to couples therapy." Her suggestion caught me off guard, but I could see the earnestness in her eyes. "Couples therapy? Do you think we need it?" "I think it could be really beneficial," she said. "We've both been through a lot, and it might help us understand each other better and strengthen our relationship even more." I considered her words and nodded. "I think that's a great idea. If it can help us grow closer and ensure we're on the same page, then I'm all for it. Rachel smiled, relief evident on her face. Thank you, David. I really believe it will be good for us. We began attending therapy sessions together, and it turned out to be a transformative experience. The therapist helped us navigate our emotions, communicate more effectively, and understand each other's perspectives. It wasn't always easy, but it was incredibly rewarding. Through therapy, we learned to support each other in new ways, to be more patient and understanding. We also discovered that our shared experiences of betrayal had given us unique insights into each other's pain and resilience. As the weeks went by, I felt our bond growing stronger. We were building a solid foundation for our future, one based on trust, open communication, and mutual respect. One evening, after a particularly insightful therapy session, Rachel and I walked through a nearby park hand in hand. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the landscape. I'm so glad we decided to do this, Rachel said, her voice filled with emotion. I feel like we're on the right path, like we're truly building something amazing together. I feel the same way, I replied, smiling at her. You've changed my life, Rachel. I'm so grateful for you. As we continued our walk, I realized that the pain of the past had led us to this beautiful present. Our journeys, filled with heartbreak and healing, had brought us to each other. And as we looked ahead, I knew that our future was bright, filled with endless possibilities and the promise of a new beginning. As Rachel and I settled into our new life together, things seemed to be going well. We had both embraced our journey of healing and growth, and our relationship felt stronger than ever. However, there was an underlying tension that neither of us had fully addressed: the impact of our past betrayals on our present lives. One Saturday morning, as we sat together having breakfast, I noticed Rachel seemed distant. She was staring at her coffee cup, lost in thought. Is everything okay? I asked, reaching across the table to touch her hand. She looked up, her eyes filled with uncertainty. I've been thinking a lot about the past, about Mark and what happened. I thought I had moved on, but sometimes it still haunts me. I nodded, understanding her pain. I get it. I've been having similar thoughts about Anna and Jack. It's hard to completely let go of something that hurts so deeply. Rachel sighed. I think we need to confront this head-on, David. We can't let our past continue to cast a shadow over our present. How do you propose we do that? I asked, genuinely curious. I think we need to talk to them, she said, her voice steady but firm. We need to have a final conversation with the people who hurt us, to truly put it behind us. The idea of confronting Anna and Jack again was daunting, but I knew Rachel was right. If we were to move forward without reservations, we needed to face our pasts one last time. We decided to reach out to them separately. I called Anna and arranged to meet at a park where we used to go for walks. Rachel contacted Mark and set up a meeting at a cafe in his neighborhood. The day of our meetings arrived, and I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. As I walked to the park, I reminded myself of the reasons for this conversation: to find closure and to strengthen my relationship with Rachel. I saw Anna sitting on a bench, looking contemplative. She stood up as I approached, and we exchanged a brief hug. Thank you for meeting me, I said, sitting down beside her. Of course, she replied. I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation. I'm glad we can talk again. I wanted to see you because there are still some things I need to say, I began. I've forgiven you, and I've found happiness with Rachel. But I need to understand why it happened, why you turned to Jack. Anna sighed, looking down at her hands. David, it wasn't just one thing. I felt disconnected from you, and I didn't know how to fix it. Jack was there, and I made a terrible mistake. I don't expect you to understand or excuse it, but that's the truth. I nodded, absorbing her words. I appreciate your honesty, Anna. I've realized that we both played a part in what happened. I wasn't as attentive as I should have been, and I regret that. She looked at me, her eyes filled with regret. I wish things had been different, David. I really do. But I'm glad you found someone who makes you happy. Me too, I said. I wish you and Jack all the best. It's time for both of us to move forward. We parted on amicable terms, and as I walked away, I felt a sense of relief. The conversation had been difficult, but it was a necessary step toward healing. Later that evening, Rachel returned from her meeting with Mark. She looked emotionally drained, but determined. How did it go? I asked. wrapping my arms around her. It was hard, she admitted, but it was also cathartic. I told him how much he hurt me, and how it took me a long time to trust again. He apologized, genuinely, and we both agreed it was time to move on. I'm proud of you, I said, kissing her forehead. We're both taking steps to heal and grow. Rachel smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. I'm proud of us. We're doing this together. As we sat on the couch, holding each other, I felt a renewed sense of hope and strength. By confronting our pasts, we had freed ourselves from the lingering shadows, and were now ready to fully embrace our future together. In the days that followed, Rachel and I felt a noticeable shift in our relationship. There was a lightness, a sense of liberation that hadn't been there before. We continued to support each other, to communicate openly, and to build a life based on trust and love. One evening, as we prepared dinner together, Rachel looked at me with a thoughtful expression. David, I've been thinking about something important. I want us to make a promise to each other. Okay, I said, intrigued. What kind of promise? A promise that we'll always be honest with each other, no matter how difficult it might be, she said. That we'll never let anything fester or go unsaid. I nodded, understanding the significance of her request. I promise, Rachel, we'll always be honest with each other. No secrets, no lies. She smiled, a look of contentment spreading across her face. I promise too, David. We're in this together. Forever. As we continued cooking, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey we had taken. We had faced our pasts, confronted our fears, and emerged stronger than ever. Our love had been tested and had endured, and I knew that together we could overcome any challenge that lay ahead. Looking at Rachel, I saw not just my partner but my confidant, my ally, and my best friend. And as we moved forward, I knew that our future was bright, filled with endless possibilities and the promise of a life built on love, trust, and unwavering support. With our past finally confronted and behind us, Rachel and I threw ourselves into our new life together. We were happy, and everything seemed to be falling into place. Our days were filled with laughter, shared dreams, and the comforting rhythm of daily routines. Yet, just as we were beginning to feel secure, life threw us an unexpected curveball. One Friday evening, after a particularly hectic week at work, Rachel suggested we go through some of the boxes still left unpacked from our move. It was a task we had been putting off, but it felt like a good way to spend a quiet night in. As we sifted through old photos, books, and memorabilia, we stumbled upon a box that had somehow been overlooked. It was filled with letters and keepsakes from Rachel's past. We decided to take a break and sat down together on the floor to go through it. Rachel pulled out an old journal, flipping through the pages with a nostalgic smile. This was my diary from college, she said, her eyes twinkling with memories. Anything juicy in there? I teased, nudging her playfully. Plenty of drama, she laughed, but nothing too scandalous. We continued exploring the box, and then Rachel's expression changed as she pulled out an envelope, her name written on it in a familiar script. This is from Mark, she said quietly, opening it. Inside was a letter, written shortly after their breakup. Rachel read it silently, her face a mix of emotions. He wrote this after I left, she explained. He wanted to explain why he did what he did. Do you want to read it aloud? I asked gently, unsure if she needed privacy. She nodded and began reading the letter. It was heartfelt, filled with apologies and regret. Mark explained how he had felt trapped in his job, stressed and overwhelmed, and had sought solace in a relationship that ultimately destroyed the one he truly valued. He expressed his deep remorse and wished Rachel happiness and peace. When she finished, Rachel folded the letter and sighed. It's strange reading this now. I can see he was hurting too, but it doesn't excuse what he did. No, it doesn't, I agreed. But it helps to understand his perspective. Everyone makes mistakes. As we continued unpacking, I found a small wooden box at the bottom. It was intricately carved and had a lock, but the key was missing. Rachel looked puzzled. I don't remember this, she said. It must be from my grandmother. She had a lot of these kinds of keepsakes. Curiosity piqued. We decided to open it later with a locksmith's help. The rest of the evening passed uneventfully, but the mysterious box lingered in our minds. The next day, we took the box to a locksmith, who managed to open it without damaging the delicate woodwork. Inside, we found old photographs, letters, and a small, velvet-lined jewelry box. Rachel opened it to reveal a beautiful antique locket. Her eyes widened in surprise. "This was my grandmother's," she said softly, her fingers tracing the intricate design. "I thought it was lost." Inside the locket was a tiny faded photograph of Rachel's grandparents. Tears filled her eyes as she showed it to me. "They were my role models for love and commitment," she said. "They were together for over 50 years. As we explored the contents of the box, we found more letters and keepsakes from Rachel's family history. Each item told a story of love, resilience, and the enduring bonds of family. It was a poignant reminder of the legacy of love and the importance of cherishing the ones we hold dear. That evening, as we sat on the couch, Rachel turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Finding that box and the locket, it made me realize how important it is to preserve our memories and our love. I want us to create our own legacy, David." "I do too," I said, taking her hand in mine. "Our journey is just beginning, and I want to build a life with you that we can be proud of." Rachel smiled, leaning in for a kiss. "Let's make a promise to always cherish each other and to never take our love for granted." "I promise," I said, sealing the vow with a kiss. In the weeks that followed, we made a conscious effort to create new memories and to honor the love that had brought us together. We started a scrapbook filled with photos, ticket stubs, and little mementos of our adventures. It was our way of documenting our journey and the love we were building. One evening, as we added the latest additions to the scrapbook, Rachel looked at me with a sparkle in her eyes. "I have an idea," she said. "Let's write letters to each other, just like my grandparents did. We can seal them and open them on our anniversaries." "I love that idea," I said, feeling a rush of affection for her. "It's a beautiful way to keep our love alive and to remind ourselves of the promises we've made." As we wrote our first letters, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought us here. The unexpected discovery of Rachel's past had led to a renewed commitment to our future. And as we sealed our letters and placed them in the scrapbook, I knew that we were creating something enduring, something that would stand the test of time. Our love, forged in the crucible of past betrayals and present commitments, was stronger than ever. And as we looked ahead, I knew that our future was bright, filled with endless possibilities and the promise of a life built on love, trust, and unwavering support. With each passing day, Rachel and I continued to build upon the foundation of trust and love we had established. Our journey together had been filled with challenges and unexpected discoveries, but through it all, our bond had only grown stronger. As our first anniversary approached, we decided to celebrate by revisiting the bed and breakfast, where we had shared a transformative weekend early in our relationship. It felt like coming full circle, a chance to reflect on how far we had come and to reaffirm our commitment to each other. The weekend getaway was filled with laughter, reminiscing about our favorite moments, and making new memories together. We took long walks through familiar trails, indulged in delicious meals at our favorite restaurants, and simply enjoyed being in each other's company. On the evening of our anniversary, as we sat on the porch of the inn, overlooking the same picturesque view that had captivated us on our first visit, Rachel turned to me with a small velvet box in her hand. "David, this past year with you has been the happiest of my life," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "You've shown me what it means to love and be loved unconditionally. I can't imagine my life without you." I looked at her, my heart swelling with love and gratitude for this incredible woman beside me. "Rachel, you've brought so much light into my life. I never thought I could find happiness like this again. You're my partner, my best friend, and the love of my life." She opened the box to reveal 2 rings nestled inside, a simple, elegant band for me and a beautiful diamond ring for her. "David, will you marry me?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with tears. I was overcome with emotion as I took her hand in mine. "Yes, Rachel. Yes, 1,000 times yes," I replied, slipping the ring onto her finger and feeling the weight of our promise to each other. That night, under a sky full of stars, we danced on the porch, wrapped in each other's arms. It was a celebration of our love, our resilience, and our unwavering commitment to building a future together. In the months that followed, we began planning our wedding, a joyous occasion that brought together our families and friends to celebrate our love. It was a testament to the strength of our relationship and the support we had found in each other. As we exchanged vows on our wedding day, surrounded by loved ones and the beauty of nature, I knew that this was where I was meant to be, by Rachel's side, embarking on a new chapter of our lives together. Now, as we settle into married life, I am grateful for the journey that led me to Rachel. Our love story is not just about overcoming past hurts or discovering unexpected treasures. It's about embracing the present moment and looking forward to a future filled with endless possibilities. Together, we continue to cherish our memories, honor our commitments, and nurture the love that has brought us so much joy and fulfillment. And as we face whatever challenges may come our way, I am confident that our love will guide us through, stronger than ever before. As I hold Rachel's hand and gaze into her eyes, I am reminded of the promise we made, to always cherish each other, to communicate openly and honestly, and to never take our love for granted. Our journey together is just beginning, and I am excited for all the adventures, milestones, and quiet moments we will share. With Rachel by my side, I know that our future is bright and our love is everlasting. And so, we continue to write our love story, one page at a time, with hearts full of hope, gratitude, and the unwavering belief that love truly conquers all.